Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Naveen Ganglani. First of all, a major thank you to everyone who checked out the podcast episode last night following the conclusion of UAAP Season 87. I went on a solo podcast to discuss the UP Fighting Maroons' conquest of UAAP Season 87, beating De La Salle University in Game 3 of the finals to reclaim their championship and win their second UAAP title in the last four seasons, their fourth title overall in the UAAP's 87-year history. Thanks to everyone who's joining again, especially those watching live once again. I truly appreciate it. This time, I'm going to have a guest, All Star Magazine Simoun Redoblado, who wrote a really good column on Monday as we record this today about UP's win on the website. You guys should check that out. He's going to come on the podcast and discuss that a little bit. Being from UP himself, he's going to provide a really good perspective, I think, on what this victory, what this championship means for the people from University of the Philippines, especially considering the heartbreaking ways they lost in the last two seasons. So I can't wait to have Simoun on. I can't wait to talk about UP, DLSU, and just putting season 87 in perspective while also teasing season 88 just a little bit. Spoiler alert! I think LaSalle is the most talented team for season 88. Way too early prediction. But there's a lot of time to unpack all of that. First, a quick word from a friend of this podcast. You know them by now, Finn Cotton.
I want to say congratulations on all your success.
Congrats to Finn Cotton Sneaker.
Para sa lahat ng mga kababayan natin dyan, Disenyong Pinoy.
Disenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Dinisenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Dinisenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Disenyong Pinoy para sa mga Pinoy.
One of the best seller nila sa Fin Cotton, napaka-quality.
Napakasarap po sa paa. Halos parang natutulog lang yung mga hinlalaki ko sa paa. The best. Fin Cotton is the best policy. Nobody's perfect.
Thank you, of course, our friends over at Finn Cotton. You guys check them out. Link to their store, well, their Instagram, which can bring you to their store, online store, is on the description of wherever you are checking out this podcast. Simoun, I've had you on this podcast for a few times now, and we've had a lot of lively, entertaining, and passionate UAP discussions. And normally I go first. But tonight, I'm going to concede that spot to you. You deserve to go first tonight. I want to be a spectator right now. I want to hear the emotional side of things. I want you to be sentimental. I want you to explain not just the analytical side of what this UP victory means, but the emotional side of it. What does it mean? What does it feel? And in the large scheme of things, what kind of memory, lasting impression, I should say, will this leave in your mind? So, Simoun, floor is yours, buddy. And by the way, I brought my wine for your monologue, so no pressure or anything.
All right. It's an honor, Navs, for you to basically give me the floor to start things off. I wrote about this in my column, and I think it was the emotional cornerstone of that piece. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it yet on all-starmagazine.com. I don't break down the X's and O's. Navs already did that last night in his instant analysis after the game. But like he said, let me take y'all on an emotional journey. During the pregame coverage, you have the courtside reporters delivering their pregame spiel, right? So Patrice Dabao of LaSalle went first. Then she turns it over right to Cheska Ramos, our new courtside reporter for this season. And at that time, I was cutting up chicken for my 2-year-old because I decided to eat dinner early because I didn't know what kind of appetite I would have after the game. So I might as well feed him as well. And I won't forget it, Navs, because right as I was cutting up that chicken to give to him, Cheska said this. Today, this is for every season UP wasn't a contender. For the years of heartbreak when the dream felt so far away. It's for the magic of season 84 when JD Kagulangan's clutch three-pointer ended 36 years of waiting. But it's also for the pain of seasons 85 and 86 when it was so close yet just out of reach. When I heard that, Navs, it was like an emotional dam inside me just burst. My wife was chatting with me, talking about things that she was observing as the players were warming up, as we could see on the screen on Pilipinas Live. But I wasn't having any of it. I wasn't hearing any of it because my head was already buried in my palm and I was bawling. I was crying like a baby. Being men of language, men of arts, men of words, you and I both, we know how an impassioned speech, how a well written spiel could evoke emotions. Something about what Cheska said in that pre-game spiel just moved me. And I'm sure I'm not alone. When you think about all the years that it was, quite frankly, embarrassing to be a fan of the Fighting Maroons men's basketball team. When I was in college and my homeboys and I would catch the LRT line to Araneta because, UP is that near to Cubao, only to see your boys, led by a lefty shooter named Simon Atkins, hitting three-pointer after three-pointer, uncontested outside shot after uncontested outside shot, no matter how hard the meager, minimal UP crowd inside the Big Dome would try to cheer those boys on, the Fighting Maroons of that time. No matter how hard we tried, there was nothing that we could do to stop teams like Salle from basically burning us on the hard court. And then, like you chronicled in your book, and like I wrote about in the article that you helped me write for All Star, things changed gradually, one step at a time, one hot meal at a time, one comfortable form of transportation at a time, one acquisition at a time, one valuable addition to the coaching staff at a time. Slowly but surely, the meager crowd that would attend Fighting Maroons games would balloon to thousands upon tens of thousands. But it hasn't been all rainbows and butterflies, Navs, you know that. After JD hit that clutch three-point shot to seal the season 84 championship, we thought we'd go back to back, maybe even a three-peat. I don't know what's more painful, coming off 36 years of futility, or like the 36 years themselves of futility, or having reached the mountaintop and then falling short, coming that close in back-to-back seasons to winning the UAAP championship. That, Navs, was the emotional backdrop for me and for many, many other Fighting Maroons fans last night. When Harold Alarcon, whom I basically called out just a few days ago on this podcast, your podcast, I wanted him to show up. Well, what did he have to show for it? 7 points. But there are many other ways to contribute in basketball. One of them is defense, another one's hustle. When Harold hugged that ball for dear life, you know the emotion that swept over me as the game finally went to UP? I expected it to be joy. I expected it to be mad ecstasy. It wasn't. It was actually relief. Relief because doubts circling in my mind, doubts circling in other Fighting Maroons fans' minds, and most certainly doubts circling in minds outside the UP community would finally be laid to rest. Winning cures everything, winning fixes everything. And last night, Navs, the Fighting Maroons won. And it felt so good.
I'm sure it did. Absolutely. I'll tell you what it did as well. There's a difference from that first championship compared to the second championship in terms of the gravitas it attains for your team or attains for your community. Let me explain. When you win that first championship, you're a champion. No one can take that away from you, right? When you win that second championship with the same core, now the conversation is no longer, yeah, they won that one championship. It was cute. Now the conversation is, oh, they're legit championship contenders. And that didn't mean that they weren't championship contenders when they made the finals 2 years after winning in '84, because they were. They came one game, one quarter in '86 away from winning another championship. But there's a difference of almost winning from actually winning. And at the same time, those who now claim that UP's championship in '84 was lucky because of a quote-unquote lucky shot. Some people call it the shot of destiny. Some people call it a lucky shot. It's perspective, depending on what side of the coin you're from. And to some degree, yes, UP was lucky in '84. But breaking news, you need luck to win every season. I mean, could you say it was lucky for Ateneo that Xavier Lucero got hurt in Game 2? Maybe. Could you say it was luck for LaSalle that UP's three-point shots abandoned them in '86? Maybe. Could you say it was luck for UP that for some reason the league MVP and probably the best UAAP player, the best local definitely we've seen since Kiefer Ravenna, somehow ended up sitting down 3.5 minutes of the last 5 minutes of the last game of the season? Was UP lucky in that regard? Sure. But what does that tell you? That tells you that you need luck to win. And not just in the UAAP, in every basketball league in the world. I mean, you look at the NBA playoffs every season, you could pinpoint to one aspect that said, oh, the team got lucky because this happened. I would know. And not to go on too much of a tangent here, but I'm a Miami Heat fan. And when Derrick Rose tore his ACL in 2012 in the first game of the playoffs against Philadelphia, of course, I was horrified for him because he was an electric player. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, the Heat might have just caught a lucky break. So that goes to show you that you need luck to win in basketball. When you win that second championship, though, and the way UP won this second championship, because we can complain or we can criticize LaSalle's lack of free throw shooting. We can criticize the fact that Topex Robinson made the substitution that did not work to his team's favor, or any other areas of the game. Ultimately, UP was the better team. The better team won the season '87 finals. That's just matter of fact. When you look at the way collectively the overall players of both teams performed throughout the series, UP's guys stepped up more than LaSalle's guys did. And even at Game 2 that LaSalle won, UP was in the driver's seat to sweep that series. So the way UP won, on top of the fact that they now won that second championship, is almost like getting that proverbial monkey off their backs. Now you can say, oh, they have that one championship because of a lucky shot. Oh, they have that one championship because it was coming out of a pandemic. Oh, they have that one championship because yada, 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 whatever. Now you're not just looking at UP as a one-hit wonder. You're looking at them as a legit title contender, a legit champion. They've done it more than once, and they've been in the finals more than once. I mentioned this in the podcast yesterday. Since 2018, second place, third place, first place, second place, first place. The one thing left that they needed to accomplish was to get that second championship to prove, not necessarily to themselves, because they don't give a shit whether you think that first championship was lucky or not. Speaking of the UP community, because they were champions. They were happy no matter what. But now to prove to everyone else, as Jason Tatum said it, but not as cheesy, what are they going to say now? Right? What are they going to say now? They won twice. They're champions. And they're going to be title contenders for the foreseeable future. I mentioned this in the podcast last night too. Whatever your standard is for excellence in UAP men's basketball today, if it comes to winning, and I mean winning games, UP is in that conversation. And to the people saying, oh, whatever, UP only started winning recently. Well, why don't you watch your basketball games on the History Channel or something? Because we're talking about basketball that's going on right now. And they're up there. And this second championship means something very significant. Again, not necessarily to themselves, because that first championship was validation enough for what they had gone through. And they celebrated that championship with all the right in the world to do so. But two things. One, to everyone else now, they've won twice. They won two times in the last 4 years. You can't deny them that. And guess what? You're no longer also going to be able to say the jokes that they're going to have the shortest championship reign in UAP history. They're going to be defending champions for the next year. And that means something. I feel like that is only going to improve the confidence of the program and the team. The coaching staff, they out-coached DLSU's coaching staff. And that was not something I saw coming, because I thought DLSU's coaching staff was out-thinking and out-executing UP in the elimination round. But that UP coaching staff came back with a vengeance. So that coaching staff is going to be confident moving forward that they've beaten Ateneo, they've beaten LaSalle, they've beaten the two teams who many consider the standard of what UAP championship excellence is. The players who are going to come back, if they come back, I'm assuming they will come back, they'll be veterans. Abadiano, Fortea, Alarcon. They're going to be fifth-year veterans next season. They're going to have all the confidence in the world. Remogat is coming in. And that program and that fan base, well, they're going to talk. The fans are going to talk their talk over the next year. Best believe that. But guess what? When you win, you get the right to talk. And there's nothing anyone else can say about it. Because they didn't win with a lucky shot, some people might call it. They didn't win because the ball bounced a certain way, right their way. They won because they were the legitimate best team in the finals and this season. And that all manifested itself in the biggest moments when it mattered most.
Actually, Navs, that was one of my worries. What specifically for Coach Golden Monteverde and what others would say about him. Now, to be fair, I haven't actually heard anyone say that to my face, or I haven't actually seen it posted on some forum or some group chat. But I wondered what would happen if UP would have come up short again this season. Are we gonna get to a point in which Coach Gold would be like Doc Rivers, like I wrote in my column? who keeps milking the glory of but one championship, which was followed by subsequent seasons of just coming up short or not even contending in the first place. Now, Coach Gold, next to Coach Tab, is the only one in recent history who's won multiple championships. And it's not out of the realm of the possibility that he and Topex will go at it for the next few years to try to see who gets to build their own dynasty. Of course, no one can say anything about what Ateneo has done in the past decade. Uh, uh, it is what it is. But now, I think Coach Gold and Coach Topex are trying to establish themselves as their own tacticians, as their own men. And in the wider scope of things, I think that's a positive development for Philippine basketball because now, no one's about to knock off Tim Cone off the Gilas perch. And once again, Coach Tab is Coach Tab. But now you take a look around and you say, wow, we have pretty good coaches. We have pretty damn good coaches here in the Philippines. And with all due respect, homegrown locals. And one of them, Coach Topex, rising through the ranks. San Sebastian Stags, Red Bull, okay, assistant coach for the Alaska Aces. So, in more ways than one, we always talk about the bright future of Philippine basketball in terms of all these athletic players that we're developing at the grassroots level, who go on to high school and college, etc. But Navs, these coaches are taking it to the next level, and we're very happy to see them go at it with these chess versus. It's not chess versus checkers. They're playing 8-dimensional chess against each other.
I want to get to this, and it's going to shift over to the topic of LaSalle because I thought it was incredibly instrumental in determining the result of the game. Kevin Kimbao on the bench with from 5:31 left in the fourth quarter to I believe it was 1 minute 18 seconds, or maybe it was 5:18 to 1:31. But the fact that he was in the bench for that long in a winner take all championship or bust situation, when he's a two-time league MVP, when you have people legitimately saying his jersey should be retired, I keep trying to wrap my head around it. What could have been the reason why? Was it because he was forcing shots? Even if he did hit that big three-pointer early in the fourth quarter, and at that point, you need to ride with your superstars. Was it because he was tired? That was one of the things I thought about before going to bed last night, to be honest with you. It was like, maybe he was cramping up, maybe he was tired. I mean, there must be a reason why he was placed on the bench when the game was at that most critical situation. So I reached out to somebody today who would know if Kemba was tired or not. I got two perspectives, two answers. The one answer I will not share anymore because that we'll keep that in the archives. It is where it is. The second answer I got though was no, he's not tired. In fact, he's the most conditioned player in the UAAP, which I don't think is false. And again, whether or not he's tired, you have to ride with your best player in that situation. Maybe you give him a rest for. I think ultimately what happened was Coach Topex wanted to give him a rest for 1-2 possessions. But the game bounced in a way where there were no stoppages. And Henry Agunane, if he makes that second free throw, Kevin Kimbao is able to enter the game. UP's lead is cut to 2. And suddenly you have a chance to win at the end of the game with your best player and the ball probably in his hands. That did not happen. Kevin Kimbao checks in, and moments later, he has to contest Francis Lopez 3 at the top of the key. He was the one who went out for the closeout there. Francis makes a shot, and we have to give him credit for having the cojones to take the shot and make it. Hi, haters. Let's not reread the quote that he gave. I think ultimately that's what it was. Coach Topex wanted to give him a short stint and hope to get him back, but there were no stoppages to get him back. However, they had a foul to give before getting in penalty.
Fouls to give.
Fouls to give.
Yeah.
That point, I know one foul sometimes can make a huge difference. You have to take that foul. And guess what? UP was able to melt like 7-8 seconds off the game clock later on when they had the lead and controlling the ball because LaSalle needed fouls to give before being in the penalty to send someone to the free throw line. So it ended up hurting them in both regards. And guess what? Mike Phillips ended up fouling out too. Right? So you can't just pinpoint one reason why someone loses a game because I mean just look at the free throw shooting, 12 out of 28. What that's bullshit. That's horrible. There's no excuse for that. And to me that's on the players. You have to make your free throws as players. And the players who will still be with LaSalle next season will remember that. And you know what? They'll be better players because of it. Because sometimes you have to feel the most painful moments, the most agonizing memories. You need to have those to teach you valuable lessons. I mean, look at UP this season. But, I mean, the fact that your best player wasn't on the court when you had the chance to win a game that honestly, for some stretches, you look like you had no business winning. Now that is agonizing in of itself.
Here's a perspective that I'd like to bring up, Navs. It's another one of those things which, like you said earlier, it just happens. It's not something that you can blame a player for. Hell, this player I'm about to talk about actually did wonders for LaSalle. In the first half, the way that the Green Archers offense was humming, it was fueled by Mike Phillips. Phillips was, for better
Just like
or
game
worse,
2.
yeah, for better or worse. I mean, say what you will about what he was trying to do to try to fish
You mean
fouls.
foul baiting?
There you go.
I mean,
I
rolling
honestly,
around the floor like a piece of paper that's being pushed by the wind.
you said it. I mean, there was one sequence in which Gani basically had his hands up, and yet Phillips was rolling on the floor like he was dodging bullets or something. Anyway, so, but for better or for worse, Motor Mike was getting LaSalle's offense to really hum. But
He was their best player in game 3. I just want that on the record. He was their best player in game 3.
exactly using his style of play, using the way he facilitates and spearheads the offense. Now, could that possibly have backfired in such a way that it was Kiambao who was sort of taken out of the offense? Because Mike was clicking on all cylinders, basically. And yes, I do have to admit, had LaSalle won that, Phillips gets Finals MVP. No question about it. Okay, with all due respect to KQ.
Deservingly so.
So I'm not sure now if Mike's big first half might have sort of worked against LaSalle in the big picture because say what you will about Motor Mike, we all know that the best player on that roster is Carl Kevin Kiambao. So we credit also Harold Alarcon and Raylan Torres. Kayod kalabaw talaga si Torres kahapon. Talagang that's what you get when you face guard Kiambao for an extended period of time. You get severely dehydrated. I hope he's fine. But aside from the defense of those, I believe they're good buddies of KQ, I also felt that I don't know if you attribute it to Kiambao. I don't know if you attribute it to Phillips. I don't know if it's just the breaks of the game. But I felt that if Kiambao would have established his footprint, would have established control of the offense more in the first half, I think he would have been humming in a better way in the second half. And Topex would not have considered even for just one possession to take that guy out, especially in the crucial fourth quarter. So again, is that something that you pin on someone? No. Mike was playing a hell of a game. Of course you let him ride. Of course you let him uh, uh, get his momentum and feel his rhythm. But because of that, there was sort of an opportunity cost, and that cost was perhaps KQ's rhythm.
I agree with you because it's not like I'm going to absolve Kevin Kimbao of any criticism, I guess, with the way he performed. He did not have a good game. He was okay. He was not good. He was not bad. He was okay. But against this opponent in this stage, LaSalle needed him to be more than okay. In fact, they needed him to be great. And there were too many possessions in the third period as UP extended its lead all the way up to 14 points, where Kimba was too much of a spectator rather than a protagonist. There were at least like a stretch there, 4 or 5 straight times where he was in the corner and didn't even touch the ball as the LaSalle offense looked like a clogged toilet. And in my mind, as that's happening, I'm like, no, no, no. In this situation, you need to win or lose with your best players. And Kevin Kimbao is too good a talent to be a spectator as UP is threatening to run away with this championship. Now, to be fair to KQ, in the fourth period, he pushed situations and took the ball and tried to score. And he had that big 3-pointer that tied the game. And I swear, Simon, for a second there, as Kevin Kimbao made the 3-point shot to tie the game, in my head, I was like, oh, here we go again. It's the same script, following its course, and you felt the anxiety of the UP fans. Not to say that they were scared, but there was definitely some concern because of what's happened over the years and because this guy is a killer. And then a few minutes later, like we mentioned, he was subbed out, and that 3-point shot turned out to be the final shot of his UAAP career. But he was a spectator for moments there in the third period. And one mistake, I think, well, I don't know if it was a mistake per se, because maybe he just missed, but it didn't work out. I thought where they were trying to get him the ball in the post, in the paint, closer for someone to help side weak defense, but did not turn out for the best. I thought KQ was at his best in the series when he would get the ball out in the perimeter and either drive to create or take pull-ups. They tried to get him the ball closer to the rim, closer to the paint in the first half and in the third period, and it didn't work. It's a strategy that backfired. And sometimes coaching in basketball, not every tactical approach is going to work. Some will, some won't, and you just have to live with the results. You can't always control things. You just have to learn to live with it sometimes. And LaSalle is going to have to learn to live with this. But again, ultimately, UP was the better team because collectively, they played better as a unit. Guys played their roles. Guys contributed where they could. And JD Kagulangan, I forgot to mention this in the podcast last night, when he noticed that Kiambao was on the bench and not in the court for those final minutes, that boy was milking that shot clock and the game clock as much as he could, even if it meant taking a tough contested pull-up at the end of the clock. He was playing game management, and that was the kind of point guard play that LaSalle has just not had all season long. And LaSalle also needed the role players to step up. They did not. Josh David, bless his soul, was awesome last finals, awesome in the elims. Not a great final series in 87 for him. And LaSalle could have really used Earl Abadam in the series. And you know what, someone, I think I spoke with you about this. We had the podcast shortly after Earl Abadam got injured, and I'm like, they're not going to feel his absence in the elimination round because they're deep. But they're going to feel his absence at a certain point, whether in the Final Four or in the finals, because he's one of the team's best 3-point shooters, and he's an automatic 5-7 points a game that you need. And bless EJ Goliana's soul, because games 1 and 2, he stepped up. But game 3, maybe the gas ran out. And DLSU could have used another floor spreader like Earl Abadam, who also cuts away from the ball and attacks in penetration to be a playmaker, meaning to create something out of nothing. And they really missed him. Do you agree with that?
What terrified me the most from that LaSalle team that won the season 86 championship was their tremendous talent in shot making, which is why I wrote that column earlier this season. You need elite shot making to win in this league. LaSalle has accumulated all these wins over the past 2 seasons, including the championship last season, because they have multiple guys who can get their own shot, whether driving to the rim or uh, catch and shoot mid range. My mind now goes to one and done player Lian Ramiro. When that dude drove it to the rim and Quentin Meliora Brown, all 6'10 of him, challenged.
Good Lord, that
And
was a great shot.
really, there was no foul to be called there because QMB went vertical. And Lian, the seasoned player that he is, the mature player that he is, knew how to contort his body in such a way that he'd still be able to get a decent shot up. Okay, perhaps even try to draw contact. He didn't. Okay, that that shot by Ramiro was the kind of high quality scoring opportunity that indeed LaSalle could have used more of. But I think about those scorers, okay, in the lineup, and for some reason they didn't quite click. I'm looking at CJ Austria, whom I'll go ahead and say it, whom I was personally terrified of since last season because of how aggressive he was and because of how relentless he was and how he would even I think he even busted out a night to the UP crowd in game 2 last season. But I think because of the injuries and the missed games that he's had this season, he's been far from a fearsome shot maker. um, David and Makalalag are very good shooters, but I felt that they weren't quite on the same level as an Evanelli or a Mark Nonoy. And now we go back to that
Yes.
conversation that we had since the start of the season. Whose absence would be felt more? Evanelli's absence and even Mark Nonoy's absence on the LaSalle side, or that huge Malik Diouf sized gap that was left
Mm.
in the Diliman
Which was
campus,
filled by QMB.
which was filled by QMB. And I don't know if I've told you this before, Navs. I was so obsessed with first your reporting on Jared Bahay. Oh, look, we got the heir apparent to JD. And then when it became apparent that Bahay would be staying put in the blue camp, all right, now Navs is talking about this guy named Jacob Baila. Why have I never heard of this guy before? Why am I only obsessing over him now? When I got the news, when you broke it out there, that Baila was going to be committing to UP, I'm like, we're made. Our roster is complete. We finally have a big wing, for God's sake. And then you start trickling these reports about, wait, we have another one coming. I'm thinking, what else do we need? Is this a big shooter? I mean, that's basically the only piece missing on our roster. That's the only kind of talent that the Fighting Maroons didn't have and still don't have, quite honestly, okay? And then Quentin Meliora Brown. All right, let's look this guy up. Isn't this guy going to be getting minutes from more established guys like Alter and these other? I mean, I don't know if Seven Gagate was already injured at that point, but this is basically going to be another big that's going to take up the minutes of those who have already been on the roster, who've been on the team longer than him. What are we going to do with this guy? Are we even going to play him? And then I was in attendance for that season 87 opener, round 1, UP versus Ateneo, and I'm like, what a catch. And when he sank those free throws last night, Nabs, and the way he did it, like, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a grammatically correct way to say ringless, like we say on the street. The way that he did it, ringless 2 times. Oh,
So
thank
clutch.
God.
So clutch.
Thank God. Now, Navs, let me put you on the spot. Between QMB and JD Kagulangan, okay, do we have a shortage of finals MVPs? We have a shortage of finals MVP candidates. I don't want to say the question that I really wanted to ask. I'll just leave it at that. So,
You mean
but
you
I think
wanted to ask me who was the legit finals MVP?
for the record, I think they're both legit, but I just wanted to hear your take on it.
I think QMB was the finals MVP for me. I think so. I think he's impact on both sides of the floor. He's calming presence. The fact that he was okay, let's look at it because I didn't check this for game 3 yet, but I'm guessing it's similar to games 1 and 2. So QMB on the floor +6, game 3. Game 2, which UP lost, QMB on the floor +7. Game 1, which UP won by 8, QMB on the floor +12. He literally, when he was on the court, UP was outplaying and outscoring DLSU. And it was one of those situations where the eye test backed it up as well. He was protecting the rim. Now, look, we got to give Mike Phillips credit because Mike Phillips was not afraid to attack him. Whether that was having to double pump, contorting in the air, moving his arms, he was scoring. I've never seen anyone score on QMB at the rim like Mike Phillips did. So that, I think, is a testament to the growth of Mike Phillips. But other than Mike, QMB was protecting the rim against everyone. He was gathering offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds. Even the rebounds he wasn't getting, he was boxing out Phillips so that Lopez could fly in for rebounds. He hit the biggest free throws of the season. He was hitting clutch shots in the post. Remember game 2 when Kimbao gave LaSalle the lead, QMB answered with a hook shot. And again here, after QMB, no, after KQ tied the game, QMB scored in the post again and gave UP the lead once again. So his shots were very timely. And that's no knock on JD. I think JD didn't shoot great from the field, but he was very important as well. I just thought QMB was the best player on the court in this series. I thought QMB was the best player, number 1, from both teams. If we had to do a draft, top 5 best players, I think QMB was the best player. I think Mike was the second best player. I think that JD, KQ are tied for third and fourth. And I think Francis was the 5th best player. But then when you go 6 to 10, I felt there were more UP guys who contributed, especially Abadiano, who was low-key just timely. He might not have the best stats, nothing noteworthy, but I thought situationally, time and score and what the team needed at the moment, people aren't mentioning how this guy had the biggest rebound of the season. Remember, LaSalle got a stop and could have gotten the ball for a chance to tie or take the lead, but little Jerry Abadiano comes flying out of nowhere, gets the offensive rebound, and started the sealing of the game process. Unsung hero of the final minutes because that was a big time play.
Okay. The Kagulangan, Abadiano, and Alarcon trio or combination, I think finally all clicked in game 3. Though Harold was sort of an intro voice in terms of his scoring production, he picked it up on defense. And to your point, the captain, my captain, Jerry was making timely plays and hitting timely shots. Now, lest I be crucified for my comments just moments ago about JD, let me make it perfectly clear. I think JD is perfectly deserving of winning Finals MVP. It was just a thought experiment. Like, look at the stats of QMB versus the impact, the plus minus when Kagulangan is on the floor, and you can really make a case for either one. Okay, so they're both deserving. I'd also like to add, Navs, that I thought it was actually going to go to QMB because of the logic that was followed in selecting a few seasons ago Malik Diouf as the Finals MVP of season 84. It was based squarely on stats. And at that time, I thought JD should have been Finals MVP because numbers are numbers. We can crunch stats all we want. Kagulangan won them that championship. Kagulangan won them that game 3. Nothing was going to happen to them in that overtime period if it weren't for JD's absolute 100% refusal to lose to Ateneo. So I can't put myself in the minds of those who voted for him, but I think it's appropriate that JD enters his journey of vying for a spot perhaps in the PBA or perhaps overseas. You're going to tell us, right? When it does happen. It's going to go on his resume. JD Kagulangan, collegiate champion, two-time collegiate champion, finals MVP. So the only thing that's going through my mind right now when it comes to Kagulangan is what number is he going to be taken in the first round? And I'm going to say it's first round. What number is he going to be taken in the first round of the 2025 PBA draft? That's where my mind is going right now as far as JD is concerned.
We'll see what the future has for JD. There's interest from teams in the KBL, but there's also interest for Clint Escamis. And we now know Kevin Kimbao is headed to the KBL. He confirmed it himself. So we'll see, to be determined. Ultimately, though, you have to give JD and UP congratulations. Like I mentioned, when it comes down to it, they were the better team when it mattered most. And you know what, Simoun? I've covered the UAP for a while now. And beyond everything, what leads to your success is peaking at the right time. Peaking at the right time. Last season, LaSalle peaked at the right time. This season, I feel like UP peaked at the right time. And more often than not, you start peaking at the right time after you deal with some controversy. I've seen it so many times over the years, and it just happens again and again and again and again. And sometimes going through that controversy, going through those moments where it feels like people have lost their faith in you, is actually what's going to drive you to be the best version of yourselves. Let's not forget, this season, UP lost consecutively to NU and LaSalle, and suddenly, after looking like world beaters, everyone was questioning whether or not they were the favorites that people made them out to be. What happened after that? They started winning. They beat FEU, they beat UE, they beat UST, and then they won 2 out of 3 against DLSU. And the way they were winning those games, outplaying opponents in the fourth quarter, I said this over and over and over again. The way they were winning those games by out executing opponents in the fourth quarter was more important than the fact that they were winning the games because of how they were winning the games. And you just saw, maybe it didn't show up in game 2, but it showed up in game 1 and game 3. Their late game composure was better than it has ever been. And they out executed DLSU, a team that over the last 2 seasons seemed like had their number in terms of late game execution. Even last season, LaSalle went through controversy. Remember that game against UE? They were 3-3. Coach Topex was throwing things in the locker room at halftime. And that controversy after sent LaSalle on their best run of the season. I think they won 10 out of 11 games to win the championship. The year before that, Ateneo was struggling, right? Season 85. And then they started peaking late in the season. That drove them all the way to the championship. And even the year before, season 84, UP went through that tough Final Four series against that LaSalle team with Winston and Nelly, somehow managed to win game 2, and I felt that momentum carried them to beating Ateneo in that finals too. So again, just take note, sometimes who wins the UAAP title is determined by the team that peaks at the right moment. And UP peaked at the right moment. I felt like LaSalle, conversely, peaked. They hit their peak in that second round series against UP. That was the best basketball I saw them play all season. And maybe it was the long break after that. Obviously, we're not making excuses. We're just trying to unpack hidden layers because that's what we do in podcasts. We talk about everything into detail, but we're not actually making excuses. Maybe the fact that they had a long break, then they had to get back, affected them, but ultimately it's not an excuse because UP won. They peaked at the right time and they deserve to be called champions. All right, before we let this podcast go here, Simon, let's talk about season 88 quickly. Too early power rankings. Let's do a little game here. I know I'm going to get crucified by some people for saying this, but okay, I think number 1 is LaSalle when you consider the rosters right now. I have UP as number 2. I have NU as number 3, assuming they're healthy. I do. That NU team is impressive. Very. I have UST as number 4, FEU as 5, Ateneo as 6, Adamson as 7, UE as 8. And again, take note, these are early power rankings based on what we know now. And a lot will change, and the power rankings will probably change as we get closer to the season. How about you?
Okay, let's qualify what you meant by what we know now. You mean what you know? You know more than a lot of us. Okay, so maybe that NU at number 3 is based on information that has not been made public yet, Mr. Ganglani. But in any case, that's gonna be interesting, and I'm gonna, as usual, follow your reporting to see what did Navs mean by NU at number 3 when. But you know what? NU did beat these two teams that we were just talking about, and they may have some prized acquisitions coming in that you're not telling us yet about. Okay, then fine, we'll play that game. Um, I can see pros and cons. I'm not gonna bother like ranking LaSalle or UP because I'm gonna be crucified either way. I just have to say that both teams will have veteran players coming off these championship runs over the past 2 years, and then of course their new acquisitions, their new additions. The I think the team that's going to prevail over the other is the one that's going to be better integrating, or it's going to do a better job of making these new additions gel more efficiently and more swiftly. Because at the end of the day, even if, and we've seen this time and time again, even if you have a talented team on paper, you still need to cook on the floor and make sure that they develop that actual chemistry in games. Next to UP and LaSalle, I don't know what UST is going to undergo this next season. Although even if Caballero doesn't come back, Al Francis Chua is cooking up something. This guy is not one to be associated with subpar or mediocre outcomes. So I'd say UST then FEU. I like FEU's chances because that last game that they played against UP, dudes were making backdoor cuts and high post splits, and I'm like, Coach Sean, is this the masterpiece that you've been looking for? Pasaol, Pre, Jorek Bautista, these guys are to look forward to in season 88. And then after that, I'd have to say Ateneo, and then I'd go NU. Then UE might take some time to regroup, okay? And then Adamson, but I think Adamson likes to be counted out because that gives them a chance to then say, hey, hello, haters. We're barging into the Final Four whether you like it or not. So those are my way, way too early power rankings, Stamps.
Awesome, awesome. Going to be a great season 88 for sure. And you know what? Like I mentioned, we still have college off season going on. We have Pinoy Liga. We'll have Phil Oil soon enough, and it'll be explosive. There'll be UAP guys going to the NCAA, NCAA guys going to the UAAP. So actually just reported that Yuken Andrade of San Beda plans to come back next season, season 101 for his final go. So that should make things interesting because San Beda has quite a few players coming in, speaking of the NCAA. But of course, we have a lot of time to dissect that. Simoun Redoblado, you have been incredible all season long, writing for us at All Star, coming on this podcast, and being a part of this community. Of course, we're thrilled to have you, and I'm thrilled for you to get to celebrate this championship. I'm happy that you joined the podcast tonight rather than being on the bonfire at Sunken Garden. Really appreciate you for that. And you deserve this. You, the UP community. I have some friends there at UP with the team and outside of the team, friends I've made online who have waited for this moment, and there are a lot of you people who support this UP team that genuinely, authentically love this team. I love supporting them, and for you all to have this moment, to have that validation of winning a championship again, winning it the way you did, it's a priceless feeling. I'm happy for all of you. Congratulations to you and the UP community. Congratulations, of course, to the Green Archers and the LaSalle community for another finals appearance. I know sometimes being second place means you're just, the last team to lose, but it's still a finals appearance. They don't come that often. So it was a great season, and I can't wait to get started again in season 88. It'll be here before we know it.
Thank you, Nabs. It's an honor.
See you around, buddy. Stay safe.
See you,
God
Nabs.
bless. And more power. Good night, buddy.
Good night.